Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very excited to be here in front of so many people. We know that a sustainable future is only viable with it being bio-based, circular and regenerative. This is not a theory. It's a necessity and increasingly a business reality, as mentioned by Michael in his opening speech. Yet, there is an acknowledged gap between targets that we've set and the implementation of EU's circular and bio-based economy agenda. I put on these earrings this morning to help us guide today. We can be passive, sit back and lean in our deck chair and continue supporting incremental progress when we feel up for it. Or we can be bold as frogs and create an environment of leapfrogging forwards to close this gap, where we support radical innovations and address system-level changes that are needed to permit new technologies to leapfrog the ancient and dominant ones and meet the targets that we've set ourselves nearly 20 years ago. And as indicated by Peter Werheim just earlier, it might even be 25 years. The question is not why, but it is how fast and at what scale we can build a strong and resilient bio-based and circular economy. For this environment of leapfrogging, for the purpose of acceleration, public investors have a defining role to play. No longer as financiers of the last resort, but as market makers and market shapers, as strategic first movers, as emission-driven partners who see capital as a tool to create a successful transition towards a sustainable future and a lasting public value. In the DRI report of last year, Europe's long-term competitiveness agenda is reset, and the bio-based and circular economy are elevated to key levers for sovereignty. In a world of increasing geopolitical instability, resource dependencies are strategic vulnerabilities. We need to reevaluate how we produce, consume, and regenerative value. We need to see bio-based and circularity as a security imperative, where bio-based and circular value chains are deemed critical to Europe's resource resilience. We need a transformational shift of our material base, where we turn waste from a liability into a geopolitical and economic assets. Public support towards bio-based and strategic circular systems are essential to create technological sovereignty and reduce our reliance on imported fossil carbon, critical minerals, protein, and synthetic inputs. To create an environment of leapfrogging and deliver this transition at speed and scale, we need more than innovation. We need coordination, capital depth, and courage to take risk early. As I say to my team at InvestNL, and I've mentioned it last week at the World Bio Conference, we need to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And that's where MPIs like ourselves, InvestNL, BPI France, KfW, and others need to help. Because we don't just fund companies, we fund futures. Public investors invest based on a mission, and that mission is deeply aligned with what Mariana Mazzucato calls an entrepreneurial state. One that doesn't just fix market failures, but co-creates markets that serve public purpose. It is possible for public investors to do so because they act upon a mandate to achieve long-term transitional goals that facilitate a strategic purpose. They have the influence to catalyze ecosystems, and they have access to patient capital and the ability to bear risks others won't or can't take, especially in hard-to-scale and capital-incentive sectors like these of the bio-based and circular economy. If public investors take a stand, it is possible to to create a crowding in effect of key ecosystem players and stakeholders across the value chain. Public investors can therefore act as strategic first movers and partners, using the right type of capital not just to fill the gaps, but to actively sculpt markets that deliver long-term public value in the circular and bio-based transition. Let me bring this to life with real examples from our portfolio. Companies that are not just innovating, but implementing true change to create new futures. We are backing Avancium, as it is scaling its production of FDCA, something for a complete lake, very difficult to pronounce, but I'll try it anyway, furan dicarbonylic acid. It's the building block for PEF, 100% plant-based, recyclable alternative for pets, a product that has dominated the world for decades. Their new plant in Delfzijl is the first of its kind in Europe and positions Europe as a leader in bio-based packaging and potentially even textiles. This is not a transitional change. This is a real game changer for the industry. Think of what could be the potential of PEF given its qualitative features. If we compare it to the patent registration of PET in the 1940s and market introduction in the 1960s. Public investor support has been crucial for Avancium in all levels of the capital structure to continue to deliver upon short, medium and longer term goals and help provide comfort in volatile and short-term focused public markets. Another example is Protix. It's literally a circularity flywheel in action, using the black soldier fly larvae to convert food waste in agri-food byproducts into high-quality proteins, oils and natural fertilizers. Their model shortens the value chain, closes the biological loop, and displaces imported soy. Their ingredients offer a low-emission alternative to traditional protein and fertilized sources. InvestNL, together with, amongst others, ECBF and many parties sitting here today, supported their scale-up precisely because of its system-level impact across the value chain. Fairphone doesn't just sell modular phones. They challenge linear, short-term design, material, electronic waste, extractive and unfair supply chains. They are a lighthouse case, influencing key strategic players within the broader electronic industry to take responsibility, for example, with the Cobalt Alliance initiative. They are making circularity tangible for consumers, where longevity, transparency, and ethical responsibility are part of the DNA of their product design and service. But please note, our investment wasn't just investing into a sustainable product. No, it was investing in a model of circular consumption. And then finally, cultivated meat. I think it has been mentioned before today. It holds a potential to dramatically transform the world of food. Meatable's mission is to feed the world without harming the planet, which cannot be more ambitious given that meat is becoming an increasingly popular product. Supporting alternative proteins are a critical solution to reduce emissions, water pollution, livestock disease, soil degradation, freshwater depletion, and food insecurity. Meatable represents a moonshot investment, a bet on a paradigm shift in protein, and that's exactly where public capital belongs. Early, catalytic, and aligned with long-term missions to transform the future of food. Europe cannot afford to fall behind in this space, and this is why InvestNL takes cultivated meat opportunities very seriously. So what's blocking? Despite these very promising examples, the system isn't scaling fast enough. We face a valley of death for circular and bio-based ventures, especially when they move from lab to pilot or from pilot to industrial scale. This is where the capital is scarce, the risk is high, and stakeholder coordination is highly complex. Key barriers that we see as InvestNL include the long-term development cycles for biotech, fermentation and cultivated systems, which doesn't align with the available risk capital from traditional market players. Secondly, we see again financial constraints is the lack of appropriate financing for FOACs, first-of-a-kind plants, which have a high likelihood of what we call an unprofitable top. And thirdly, feedstock markets are fragmented and there is a regulatory ambiguity. I wrote this down perfectly, but I keep on struggling. Ambiguity, which deters essential stakeholders. And finally, there's insufficient anchor demand at the right price to justify scaling. Based on these roadblocks, there is no level playing field for the new bio-based and circular economy initiatives, where these new initiatives are asked to provide solutions to all these topics at the same time with limited capital, resources and expertise. It is precisely here where public investors can take on these challenges and we can create an environment where we can leapfrog the valley of death. This is not just a funding issue. It's a market-building challenge for which public investors take responsibility. They need to shine the light and lead the way. So how do we enable a system change? We need to be more than funders, as said. We need to be strategic actors. We need to help de-risk pioneers, use public capital to absorb early risk and bring others along. We need to build value chain resilience, invest not just in startups, but in systems around them, logistics, offtake, standardization of infrastructure. We need to create a platform thinking. We should not chase scattered bets, but we coordinate around missions and themes where Europe has strategic advantage. We need to ensure cross-border alignment. We need to collaborate with other NPIs and European initiatives, given that this transition won't respect national borders. And although various public investors, as has been mentioned before today, are taking great steps, such as a bio-based and circular economy theme, working together in, for example, a joint initiative on the circular economy called JICE, investing in like-minded funds such as ECBF in order to create an ecosystem of capital resources and in-depth expertise and network, we all need to step up and get even more comfortable with the uncomfortable to accelerate the transition in order to meet our national and European bio-based and circular goals. So let me close with this. As said, it is our responsibility not just to invest in an individual company. We need to invest in a new economic model, one that regenerates, that circulates, that liberates us from a dependency on volatile, extractive systems. This is the work of a generation, but it starts with what we do now, in 2025. As public investors, we need to shine the light. We need to accelerate, connect, and work together with all relevant stakeholders across all borders in order to de-risk the builders of this new economy. We can be passive, sitting back in our deck chairs and fund incremental progress, or we can be bold like frogs and leapfrog to this new economy, the bio-based and circular economy, and help shape the conditions for systemic change to create a sustainable future for future generations. At InvestNL, we choose the latter, and we invite all of you to join us in turning purpose into portfolio and capital into capability. Because in 2050, when I look back, and I invite you to do the same, we should be able to say, we didn't just invest, in the bio-based and circular economy. We helped build it. Thank you.